What's up guys, and thank you for stopping by the channel. Today's project is this Toro commercial mower, and the problem is that it won't start, which resulted in a pull rope problem, unfortunately. Let's see if we can find out what the issues are and see if we can fix them. This is a fantastic commercial lawnmower. This Suzuki engine, which is a 2-cycle, is extremely reliable, and when it's paired up with this durable deck, makes for a wonderful commercial option. However, this one has started having problems these last few years. But for being 17 years old, that's pretty good. The last attempt to try and start this mower, it simply would not start. And during some frantic pulling, the recoil pretty much got stuck. Let's pull on the rope a little bit and see exactly how stuck it really is. As you can see, it won't budge one bit. For safety reasons, let's remove the spark plug wire before we check to see if the engine might be locked up. And fortunately for us, the engine spins just fine, so that is definitely not the problem. If we take a look through the recoil assembly, we can see that the starter cup is moving just fine, so the problem is definitely in the recoil. Let's remove the bolts for the recoil and remove it and see exactly what might have happened. Okay, so it looks like the rope just wrapped itself around the middle section. So let's untangle the rope and see if that fixed our problem. And after fixing the recoil and replacing it back on the engine, I realized that the rope wouldn't wind all the way back up, so I had to remove it and wind the spring 2 more times. Now that the recoil is fixed, I want to try starting this mower. Let's check to see if it came to us with any fuel in the tank. And it looks like we have plenty of gas in there. I did check off camera the quality of the fuel, and it was in excellent condition. Just to be clear, I am not priming slowly. It's actually the primer bulb, which is working fine, but it's really slow to return. If this is the problem, we'll replace it later. Well, unfortunately, it did not start. Let's try removing the air filter cover and the filter and check to make sure that the choke is working like it's supposed to. And as you can see, it is working just fine. So let's take the choke off this time and try some manual priming by putting some fuel into the throat of the carburetor this time. And unfortunately, it still did not start. However, I am not going to give up just yet. We're going to try it one more time. And unfortunately, it didn't start. Let's check to see if we have spark by using a spark checker. You can buy these online for just a few dollars. I know it's a little tough to see, but I slowed the video down so you can see there actually is spark in the middle of the tester. Now let's check to see if the engine has enough compression. Simply remove the spark plug and thread in the hose adapter. I'd like to see a number around 70 psi. If it's under 50, then we'll need to rebuild the engine. Well, that's really impressive. It's over 100 psi, which is extremely good for a 17-year-old lawnmower. So I'm going to try and start it one more time. This time, I'm going to replace the spark plug from one that came from a working Toro commercial, just the same as this one. I'm going to test to see if the spark plug is the problem. Well, it didn't start yet again, and by now I'm getting a little tired of this thing. So what I'm going to do now is take the spark plug out and try to shorten the spark plug gap from about 24 thousandths to somewhere around 19 thousandths. Well, maybe the coil is getting a little weak, and I'm going to give the spark a better chance to jump the air gap by making it a little closer. I'm just tapping the ground strap on the tire gently to close the gap up and measuring as I go along. Well, it didn't start yet again, and now I'm really beginning to run out of ideas. I do have one left though, but it's a long shot. One of the weaknesses on this engine is that there are several gaskets between the engine and the carburetor. After 17 years, these gaskets can harden up and cause some major air leaks. The air leaks can cause the engine not to want to pull air through the carburetor, which won't pull any gas, and cause a no-start situation. If you've got gas in the fuel tank, you'll need to pinch off the fuel line before removing the fuel line from the carburetor. Otherwise, all the gas will come out from the tank. Next, you'll need to double nut these studs to remove them. You'll need to put the first nut on the stud and then screw on a second nut. Tighten the two of them together, and then that way you can turn the whole stud by turning the nuts. If I see this mower again next year, I might try putting a notch at the end of the stud. That way I don't have to use a double nut method, just a flathead screwdriver to get the studs off. Okay, this part here is the insulator, and here is the heat shield. There are 3 gaskets here, which means there are 3 places for air leaks. We'll take care of them in a minute, but since the carb is off, we might as well inspect it and clean it if we need to. Well, it looks like there's zero debris in the carburetor bowl, which is good news. So let's go ahead and remove the carburetor jet. The jet looks clogged on camera, but when I put a small wire through it, it wasn't clogged at all. Now, it's not the problem we were looking for, but I'm still going to work this wire through the jet to make sure it's clean though. Next, what I'll do is remove the emulsion tube in the middle of the carburetor and make sure it's also clear as well. Well, I hate to say it, it looks clean just like the rest of the carburetor, so I'm going to go ahead and replace it and put the rest of it back together as well. There's one last place to clean on the carburetor, and that's a jet on the upper part of the carburetor, and you'll need to use a flathead to remove it. I'll use the wire once again to poke all the holes here, but as you can see there's nothing coming out, so it wasn't our problem either. Now we're going to finally move to the gaskets. I don't have a gasket set for this mower, and I'm not going to order one until I know it's the problem. So to find out if it's the problem, I'm going to use some gasket maker to seal the gasket surfaces. Lining up the studs with the carburetor, the insulator, the shield, and all three gaskets is the hardest part. Take your time, otherwise you'll have a problem later on. You can't replace the studs with bolts because you'd have to pass the bolts through the air filter base and the rest of the stuff, which would make it much harder. If the engine doesn't start this time, I can only guess that the flywheel key is sheared, but the problem is there aren't any marks on the blade to indicate that it's hit anything. I'm kind of running out of ideas at this point. I'd like to ask if you have any ideas as to why this engine might not be starting. I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts on this. Once the carburetor is back on the studs, reconnect the fuel lines, replace the air filter box, the filter, and the filter cover. Remember, since we're using RTV, we need to give it time to set up. Depending on the temperature and the humidity, it could take over 24 hours. Okay, it's the next day and we're ready to try starting this mower once again. That metallic noise that you heard when I shut the engine off is the flywheel brake. It's completely worn down and it's not a really big concern right at the moment. Well, it finally started, so I'll be ordering a new set of gaskets for the carburetor soon. The one thing I will say about this mower is that it's usually left outside in the lawn trailer all year round, so it sees all sorts of temperature extremes that it really shouldn't have to. Other than that, I don't have a really good answer as to why the gaskets would leak on this mower. If you have any ideas on why that would happen, I'd like to hear them. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please feel free to ask any questions, and I hope to see you in my next video.